order. Do we have anybody who would like to do the invocation? We'll just read that thing.
Scott did such a fantastic
All right,
job
sure.
last time.
What's that?
Scott did such a great job last
Well,
time.
let's couple of them. We will do that. If you would, please silence your cell phones and join me. We begin each meeting with an invocation, which will be done by our attorney, followed by our pledge of allegiance, which will be led by John Boyd, our Director of Labor Relations, followed by the national anthem, which will be the notables under the direction of Jessica Lopez from Neptune Middle School, followed by our mission statement, which will be read by Dr. Respis, and lastly, our translation service by Dr. Melinda Reyes, our Executive Director of Multiple. So if everyone would rise.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you continue to bless this school district, its board and its leaders, and the students and faculty and staff, that you continue to provide the wisdom necessary to make the right decisions for the people we all serve. In God's name we pray.
Join me in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Assuming the devil was on
Video.
video.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And you may be seated.
Oh, say can you see?
Good evening. The mission statement of the School District of Osceola County is inspiring all learners to reach their highest potential as responsible, productive citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Respis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valerie Perez, and I'm here to Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Belinda Jiménez y estoy aquí para trabajar con la Comisión de Traducción.
Thank you, Dr. Ernest. Board, for any comments we may have tonight, I will start to my right. Okay. Last, do you have?
Nothing. I attended St. Cloud High School's their school choice fair, and I just wanted to compliment all these kids and the teachers for making the best out of a bad situation. And you know, they had it at the bus loop and the ROTC and the jazz band and the people would drive up and they would get it was a nice event. And then second thing, because I'm a new board member, this young lady to my right, I want to openly thank you for everything that you have done for me, because I don't know how you do it in managing all five of us, but I just wanted to thank you publicly. Thank you, Tanya.
Very welcome. Sure, I'd like to reiterate how happy I am to be here. Thanks to the team that was in here earlier with us. It's been working with the district itself and with its leaders. It has been truly inspiring, and you know, you get elected to an office and you think you're gonna do such great things, and it's great to get to a place and realize there's already great things going on. So, I'm grateful to be here, I'm happy, and, to have been working so far for these past couple of weeks. And also, I'd like to thank Tanya as well for all the hard work that she's done. I may not be as fat as Robert.
You're
but,
not, you're not.
Thank you, Tanya.
You're very welcome.
16.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I hope you had a restful week with your families. And I wanna just give a special shout out to, our special programs team. They collected 500 baskets for the, basket brigade. That's amazing. So I just wanted to make sure that I gave them a shout out. They always do amazing work and I have a special place in my heart for them, but this was especially great. So I wanted to give them a shout out.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody, hope they had a safe, Thanksgiving break. I apologize, I felt bad because the board meeting's now and Thanksgiving was a full week and I had to call staff, during their Thanksgiving. So I really want to thank you, Superintendent Pace, Mark Clench, Sarah Graber, they were, and I try to say I'm sorry when I've called. I'm like, look, I wanted to go over the agenda. But you guys didn't rush me, you guys didn't do any of that, you guys caught me up to date, up to speed. We had a great facilities meeting before here, this workshop. So I really want to thank you guys. So I was thinking about whether reserving the negative comment for now or for later, but I did read an email from a parent that had a concern, and so I did call that parent back, and it was one that was forwarded out. And I just wanted to make sure that, and it deals with the fact that when their student is underperforming, that are on the digital option, we're kind of redirecting them to come to option number one to try to improve their student performance. And I agree with that. And I spoke with Dr. Pace before in full transparency. I just want to make sure that when we communicate that to the parents, we be a little bit sensitive to their needs because the coronavirus, their job, their this or that. It's not like, hey, Johnny, you need to go back to school. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, a more collaborative environment, like, hey, a little more sensitive, like, hey, look, little Johnny isn't performing that well. We think that it's best if little Johnny may come back to school and get the individualized instruction. So to me, it's not just about the specific case. That's why I'm not even naming the student or the parent. I just want to make sure that at the school district level, when we're communicating that to the parents or to the students, that we're just kind of being aware of their situation and just, kind of encouraging them still to come back, but just kind of be sensitive because the parent was a little hurt. And, and I just want to make sure that, how we approach people is just as important as the information being conveyed.
And I just want to mention the fact that Governor DeSantis and Mr. Corcoran were in town this week at Roger Creek. 63 counties in this state, and they chose this county to come to. I think that's says something about this district. It actually says something about our superintendent. So I'm proud of the fact that they came here to do that. And I think some of the information they gave out is good news, which Dr. Pace will share with us. But some very exciting stuff coming up are our appointments. And Dr. Pace, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Chairman Thacker and members of the board. I'd like to take a moment tonight to recognize Dr. Mia Campbell. She is with us tonight from Osceola High School. As many of you know, she has accepted a district leadership position at Highlands County. And while we hate to see her go, we want to thank her for her service as a leader of the Cowboy Nation and then certainly wish her well as she moves forward. But that brings me to my next exciting announcement. Ms. Joanna Santiago, do you mind stepping over to the podium tonight? Board members, I could not be more proud to recognize Joanna Santiago as my recommendation to become the new principal at Osceola High School effective Monday, December the 7th. Joanna actually began her career at Osceola High School. She was there for 10 years as a teacher, a dean, and a learning resource specialist. She worked there under Mr. Pricer and has that cowboy vibe already. However, she's also been a highly successful assistant principal at Poinciana High School, working hand in hand with Mr. Meachin and the team there. She was a huge member of the team in opening to Hopekalaga High School. And then currently she took on the challenge as AP at Osceola Virtual School. But when I called, she said, I'm ready for the next challenge. I really am excited about getting back to that big picture comprehensive high school experience at the Cowboy Nation. So board members, I stand ready to affirm this recommendation.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the appointment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. Cowboys, I'm very happy that you're there, so if you'd like to make any comments, we'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, school board members, welcome. Dr. Perez, Dr. Evans, all administrators present. I'm gonna speak over my mask and my glasses up on, so I apologize.
Notice she has a cowboy gold mask already.
A little excited. I wanted to thank you for this opportunity and for bringing me, absolutely, tradition. The teachers and the students, Dr. Campbell, they worked so hard. So I'm here to reassure you that I'm going to do my very, very best alongside Ms. Ballard that I'm excited about as well to continue to maintain the cowboy traditions and continue to provide that excellence both academically and athletically. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here.
Congratulations. Board members, then I have a set of administrative transfers. While we don't like to do this stuff mid-year, sometimes opportunities present themselves for us to give some of our assistant principals some additional growth experiences and also to make sure that we have solid teams in place across our district. So I'll read this to you as a list and hopefully take one motion, and then we can recognize a few people. I would be recommending the transfer of Yanellis Ballard, currently AP at Harmony Middle, to become the new assistant principal for instruction at Osceola High School. Ms. Rebecca Ratowski, currently the AP at OTEC and PASS, to become an assistant principal at Liberty High School. Mr. Mark Hernandez, currently the AP at Parkway Middle, to join the team at Liberty High as well. Marcia Clevenger, currently the AP at Narcoossee Middle, to take on the role of AP at Osceola Virtual School. Juanita Morrow, currently the AP at Liberty High, to take on the position of OTEC and PASS. Jack Carr, currently the AP at Liberty High, to take on the position at Harmony Middle. And Jared Stewart, currently AP at Osceola High, to join the team as an assistant principal at Narcoossee Middle. I did invite Ms. Ballard to join us tonight because she will be joining Ms. Joanna Santiago with your approval board to really bring that Osceola High School team together. The rest of the assistant principals could not be with us because of space constraints, but I am sure you would enjoy me once you approve it and congratulating them as well.
Motion.
No, go ahead, Robert.
Move to accept the list.
I have a motion by Mr. Bass and a second by Mr. Arguello to approve the appointment transfers. Boards, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0. Congratulations to all those being transferred. Okay, that brings us to our public comment portion of our board meeting. And I've got a stack of them here, but we will just start working through these. What I need you to do is when I call your name, if you'll come up to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. There will be a timer, a clock timer up on the monitor that you can see. And we will ask that we respect your time and we respect your comments, and we'll ask you to respect us on that as well. So first would be Nancy Batista. And just for time's sake, Megan Carter will be next. Nancy, please come up and state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Nancy Batista. My address is 4417 Canopy Court, Kissimmee, Florida 34758. And I'm here today on behalf of teachers that have anonymously given me their stories, and I would like to share them with everyone here. First teacher, I was just in a classroom where the teacher stopped me before coming in respectfully because she just found out she was in contact with the virus over the break. I'm talking about COVID. She knows of my health condition, so she didn't want to put me at risk. The district was contacted and told her she is fine and to stay at school. However, our administration did the right thing and sent her home. For how long? I don't know. But now the whole class was exposed for at least an hour, including me who was at her desk. I now have to travel to other classrooms filled with students, putting all of them at risk too. Teacher number 2. ESE teacher who has tested positive says parents of the exposed students were notified, but they had the choice to quarantine or not. Block teachers who came into her room have still not been notified. Teacher number 3. The entire football team at a school is quarantined over 6 students that have tested positive, plus 2 teachers and some of the soccer team. Confirmed by a second teacher who wanted to add that the freshman basketball team is also quarantined. This was at a time that the school was reporting only 2 kids were testing positive from the football team. All that we're asking is for transparency, and it just seems like we're not getting it from anyone in the district. So if we're supposed to be trusting the district, we ask for transparency and you reporting the correct numbers.
Thank you, Nancy. Next up is Megan Carter. I need your name, and you have your address on here, so name and address.
My name is Megan Carter. I reside at 204 Ellsworth Court in Kissimmee. I'm going to continue the anonymous teachers. We have an anonymous teacher saying that they have tested positive. The letter their school sent home told the parents, caretakers, and families of said teacher students that their child had contact with someone who had contact with a positive person. Basically, the school lied when warning the parents, caretakers, and families of kids who were exposed to a positive teacher. Another letter confirmed by multiple teachers, a teacher tested positive and no students were quarantined. Another classroom's para tested positive and the entire class was quarantined. Both are self-contained. And then lastly, Liberty High School is hiding illness of a para who works with special ed students. They aren't reporting properly to parents or other teachers and staff. This has been reported to the health department. I was really happy to see some high school students here at this last meeting and call out some of members in this room for not wearing their mask the entire time they were in this room. I noticed that we had our governor visit a school here in Osceola County this week, and he, along with the Secretary of Education from the state of Florida, as well as our Superintendent, Deborah Pace, also took their masks off while they were speaking at the microphone. We're to lead by example and show our kids how to be safe in a pandemic. That means all of you too. All of us. Lead by example, please.
Thank you. Next up will be Kevin Parker. You're outside.
There's a television outside somewhere, it's being broadcast. Yeah.
Okay. Next up will be Tamika Lyles. Ms. Lyles here? Ms. Lyles, for the record, give us your name, address, please, and 3 minutes.
My name's Tamika Lyles. My address is protected, but I do live here in Kissimmee, Florida. I would just like to say, I don't need the entire 3 minutes, that under the circumstances of my previous colleagues that have expressed their concern about other teachers, children that are possibly exposed, I would just like to request on behalf of my organization that advocates for this community, teachers, staff, and parents and students, I would just like to request of the board to have a meeting outside of this board meeting to address these concerns and come up with solutions that we can help resolve these issues, because apparently we have a lot of issues and people are afraid to come forth. And I just would love to sit down with you all and address these issues. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Lyles. Do you think, if we did it outside of a board meeting, other people would be more comfortable to come? I'm curious.
The reason why they don't come is because they're afraid that their job will be jeopardized if they come to you all. I would be willing to get written statements from other teachers just as we have presented here. And I will present them to you in this meeting where you all can actually see some of the concerns from some of the other teachers and staff and so forth, if that would be of help to you. But there are several more. That's just a few.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that, Mr. Chairman.
I'm not opposed to it either, but if there are any teachers listening, I am always available. And I think that in the past years, I've been pretty transparent and accessible to teachers, even if they want to remain anonymous. So if there's anybody listening and they're afraid to come up, I'm more than willing to have that conversation one-on-one with them. I hope that they don't feel like they can't come to us.
They do.
Well, I truly hope that they know that I'm here for them. And I know that the rest of the board is as well.
Yes, and that's why, rather than come to you all tonight with any more concerns, I would just like to propose that we have a meeting and we sit down with myself and maybe some other teachers or representatives within my organization that can express these concerns to you all, and then we can take these solutions and utilize them in the school.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Valerie Perez.
As I respect your time today, I will ask that if I go over the 3-minute mark, that you respect my time today as well, because I'm submitting my college application deadline by tonight to be here. I wanted my words today to reflect relief for the support and continuation for online learning to continue. And I spoke on this issue last meeting, and I'm glad that the state has extended the necessary funding. However, nothing I have to say today will reflect gratitude or respect for the leadership in front of me. What kind of example are you setting for students with your actions? Speaking with your mask off, Dr. Pace, especially in one of our schools, is a reflection of insensitivity. Furthermore, it has been heartbreaking to see how disposable you are treating my teachers. All of the teachers of Osceola County deserve much better leaders. You have failed to respect them as human beings. They have feelings and family members just like any other student or member on your board. They are hurting and exhausted, and you have forced them to risk their lives and the lives of their families while treating them as though they are expendable. And it's alarming as a student in this community to see the lack of sensitivity here.
Ms. Perez, I welcome your comments. Your comments are fine, but do not direct them directly at somebody. They're directed to the board, please.
Great, thank you. When people speak out, we are often referred to later in the meeting as not being up to date on information or policy. However, I know whether these assertions are true or not because I'm a student in class who your policies and regulations affect. Same for the teachers across the county who have reached out to me. And frankly, it's disgusting to hear you all lie about the regulation procedures for the pandemic on campus, the measures in place to protect teacher safety, and even your own statements that you care about the success and improvement of students because your statements do not match our experiences. Education is not education anymore. It has become a business. You're putting profits over people. And we know this because our teachers take customer service training. How can you sit there and say you care about the betterment of students' education when teachers have confided in me that they're being encouraged to set up online students to fail so that they'll be advised to come to campus? Negotiating a contract that results in a continuous low salary for most experienced teachers, creating a system where teachers must give up their planning period to accommodate the master schedule, and inconsistently providing paid sick leave to those exposed to COVID-19 is a reflection of your selfishness. Do you not understand how the pandemic works? How are you going to allow teachers who have been exposed to someone who tested positive to quarantine only if they're symptomatic, when it's scientifically proven that anyone can be asymptomatic or symptomatic with the virus and still spread it? And what's saddest about this public comment section is I know none of my teachers would ever feel comfortable expressing their concerns or proposed solutions in fear of the consequences they would face from your jurisdiction. You influence their administrators who conduct their evaluations, and a teacher's feelings of inadequacy are exacerbated by the oppressive demands and insensitivity of you all. The unreasonable pressures you put on them is a reflection of your disregard for the mental health and well-being of your educators. Have any of you ever even asked them how they're feeling? Students take a mental health survey, but have you offered that to teachers? And I don't have all the answers in the world, but I don't want to leave today without providing a couple of solutions. First of all, you need to respect for teachers' time needs to become a priority. Allocate time for them on Wednesdays to catch up on the things you expect from them. They have plenty of responsibilities and are currently being mandated to attend PLC meetings, which beneficial in a normal year is not helpful this year. It is depriving them of their time.
I'm gonna I gave you a little extra time because I interrupted you in the middle, but your time is up. If you can, I'll give you a minute, a few seconds to wrap up your last
Can
comment.
I take please another minute? It will only be another minute.
Please wrap it up. I'm sorry, you can.
Okay. Be reasonable, because right now it is deteriorating for them to reach perfection with the lack of resources available to them. This burnout will not help teacher retention, which is a goal of our district. And there needs to be a consistent process for sick leaving concerning COVID-19 exposure. Stop challenging the science. If they're exposed to someone with COVID-19, they should be mandated to quarantine like the students. And before I conclude, an ongoing theme across this district has been labeling them as heroes during this pandemic. It is honestly satirical and disrespectful. They did not sign up to be heroes. They signed up to be educators and leaders for students. They have real skills that require time, energy, and patience. And I know my teachers would prefer more flexibility in terms of their time and more allocation toward their pay than a label that is meaningless in reality. This is not a time to be urgent. It is a time to be
Ms. Perez.
reflective.
Ms. Press, thank you very much. No, I will never get this last name right. Hina.
Wyberl? Yeah, close.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I was trying.
You were close.
My first language isn't that good either. I'm sorry, thank you.
That's okay. I'm Tina Wyberl. I live at 255 Stemwood Court here in Kissimmee. I'm here I wrote you all a letter from St. Cloud Middle. I know you received it before break. And I just wanted to introduce myself and urge you to consider making a change to our sick policy so that faculty members can share when we have a catastrophic event at a school. My colleague lost her 4-year-old, and a lot of us want to donate a day, and I know currently we cannot, but I also know after researching the Florida statute, we could, if you guys would look into changing the policy. And I know we would have to have some parameters, and I'm all for that, but I really would like to implore you to look into it and make a long-term permanent change, because I know our colleague's situation is not the only situation that has come up. And in the long run, I think it ultimately saves money, because when I retire, you'd have to pay my days out anyway, so if I'm willing to give them away, I mean honestly, if I'm willing to give them away, and I know there was a concern about favoritism, but I can honestly tell you that I don't know my colleague very well, but I know her situation, and I know my heart breaks for her situation. And I would just like to ask that you do really consider this going forward. And that's all I have to say. I'm not gonna take a lot of time. I just wanted to introduce myself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Next up is Christina Stewart.
Hello, Christina Stewart, 4656 Egg Harbor Drive. So I just want to start out by telling you that that student out there is crying. Shame on every single one of you. Shame on you. There are kids crying and hurting. I'm here today to actually talk about bullying. I'm not talking about the kids, I'm talking about the grown-ups. I'm talking about the principal who threatened to sue me for Facebook posts. I'm talking about, vice principal. I'm also talking about the principal who sent out an email with my picture on it to his entire staff. Y'all want to worry about bullying? We're talking about setting examples out here. That little girl, the other speakers, we're talking about how you guys are a poor example. You better tell your principals and vice principals to stop, because it's not right. And just to go back to something Terry Castillo just said, she said that her door is open, that she hopes people don't feel like they can't come talk to her. I literally laughed out loud
because you have bullied teachers so bad they're afraid to come in here and speak. You have beaten them down. You have not respected them. You walk into a school and take your damn mask off. Shame! Y'all are pathetic.
Mr. Allen. I'll hold you last, that's where you fell in the stack, you must have been the first one. Neil McCord.
Larry Allen, 722 Mabbitt. There's so much to talk about, but I only get 3 minutes every 2 weeks. So first thing I want to do is read a letter that was written by a parent. Please, God, don't shrink up. Here you go. I'm a parent in the school system for the past 14 years. It is my passion to work with children, and this is why I continue to do so for so many years. With all this talk about salary increase for the teachers, I was wondering what is being done for the parents. I heard that the district is not wanting to give a salary increase to us. This is just so unheartening. In the 14 years that I've been working for this district, my salary has increased by about $1 an hour. This is true. This is a true disgrace. Parents do so much for the schools. We sub, we have multiple duties. We are there helping out in all departments of the school when needed. And as a parent working with students, we do just about as much as what teachers do. We have multiple grades and some of us teaching large groups. I wish we could get some recognition for all the hard work and dedication and that our salaries reflect that. In these difficult times in the beginning, in becoming almost impossible to keep up with our salaries where everything goes up yet our salary stays about the same. I truly wish that the district reconsiders not giving us an increase. That was by one of your employees. So I guess what I'm saying is we need to figure out a way that we can take care of the people who take care of our students. Now, moving on to the next thing. I echo everything that's been said about people coming forth to the school board to speak. For whatever reason, people feel that their job could be in jeopardy. There will be repercussions if they show up in this forum and speak what's really going on, if they speak their truth. And it's been difficult to even get them to give me the stories to speak to you all. So that's something that we probably need to address. And I guess that's about it. There's so many things going on with insurance, with we're expecting the teachers to somehow get our students to have a year's growth in less than a year. That would be difficult in a normal, not COVID world pandemic year. But this is what we expect. As school board members, I know you have to have some of the same experiences that I have when the state of Florida tells you this is how it's going to be, and you think, are these people insane? Because it does not make sense. So what I would love for you all to do is use that common sense and fight for the people in Osceola County and fight for what's best for our students and our employees. Somebody's got to stand up. Many times I'm about to throw up when I come up here because I'm nervous too, but it must be done, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. That brings us.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a
Sure.
question real quick on that? Because I know there's a constitutional amendment that was approved, and I think it's for $15 an hour, but I think immediately adjust to 10. How many paraprofessionals do we have that make less than that for automatically get an adjustment? Or do we have to abide by it, or do we not have to abide by it? Because I know it keeps escalating. It's not just 10, I think it's 11, 12, or.
The latest research that we've done on that, and actually we talked about it just this week, is that we believe that in this first year, it would only impact the rate that we're paying our substitutes. All of our other employees are above that first year's minimum.
Board, just throw this out to see what y'all think about this. I know Dr. Pace is going to do an update at the end of the meeting on back to school update. I'm wondering if for the future, for the next few meetings coming up, we should possibly move that ahead of public comment, because it's disheartening to me when we talk about the very issue that happened, people are here, the public that want to address us, they don't hear the rest of that comment, so what would y'all think about doing that?
Yeah.
Dr. Pace, are you okay with that?
Whatever supports pleasure.
Okay, let's try and move that update, into the agenda, maybe right after your appointments and transfers. And I know, maybe in early January, if we could get, the doctors to join in like they did, because that, to me, was a very powerful and very enlightening, presentation. And if we could move that in, if the board's okay with that, and, disseminate some of that information. At this point, we'll recess the school board meeting and call to order the public hearing. Mr. Boyd?
Good evening, board members. Tonight, we bring to you the changes that were here, that were shared at the workshop a month ago. And we'll ask for action after I read them into the record. And also, we would offer an opportunity for public comment on those changes. So we're proposing, just as the same as last time, one new school board rule, 5.85, exertional heat illness, that creates new policy regarding prevention and monitoring of exertional heat illness per section 1006.165, well-being of students participating in extracurricular activities, training, Florida statutes. The next series of school board rules are changes to, or revisions to, existing school board rules. 2.48, electronic records and electronic signatures, revises paragraphs 1 and 2, adds paragraph 4 for consistency with current state law. Rule 3.25, automatic external defibrillators, adds additional requirements related to defibrillator location. Rule 3.40, safe and secure schools, is the ongoing creation of new policy language and revisions of existing policy language in order to comply with recent changes in state law and to provide consistency with district precedent and current practice. This refers to Senate Bill 7026, commonly known as the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public School Safety Act, passed in 2018, and Senate Bill 7030, passed in 2019. Specific changes to this rule revises the policy language to reflect changes in section 1006.07, district school board duties relating to student discipline and school safety, Florida statutes, and adds paragraph 5B3. Rule 3.68, background screening of contractors, revises policy language to add the new E-Verify requirement. Rule 4.71, participation of homeschooled students in extracurricular activities, adds paragraph 4 to clarify requirements for participation in athletic programs for students at non-traditional schools. 5.18, children of military families, revises the policy language to implement changes within section 1003.05, clause 4, assistance to transitioning students from military families, Florida statutes. It adds paragraph 4 to clarify procedures for enrollment of students from military families based upon official military orders instead of residency. Rule 5.55, notification of involuntary examination, revises policy language regarding de-escalation prior to notifying law enforcement. Rule 5.80, athletics, revises paragraphs 10 and 11 for consistency with existing rules 3.25 and new school board rule 5.85. Rule 6.11, employment defined, revises policy language to add the new E-Verify requirement. Rule 6.17, appointment or employment requirements, revises policy language to add the new E-Verify requirement. And lastly, Rule 7.10, school budget system, adds paragraph 6 to establish a minimum reserve policy for the Employee Health and Life Trust Fund. So at this time, board, I would pause and ask for an opportunity for public comment.
This is a public hearing, or is there anybody from the public in the audience that would wish to address the board on these rules changes? Seeing none, we will close the public portion of this meeting and I will turn it to the board. Do we have any questions, comments, or thoughts? And at that point, I believe you want a ruling from the board on this, right?
Yes, sir. We're asking for action on these rules.
Is it too late? Because I know it's a process to get heard. The employee sharing sick time, since it's technically a school board policy, there have to
We
be
can,
amended.
we can do that as an additional policy.
Yeah, I'd
change.
like to see if we can add that in at the same time, or amend what we have.
There's several readings. We do these constantly, so we could, I want to discuss that towards the end of the meeting too, but if we want to do that, if we could ask them to look at that change.
Yes, sir.
Or just, I'd like to see some data on that change. I've got a lot of questions on it.
Well, if we're gonna address that at a later board meeting, then I'm okay with motioning to approve the rule changes as submitted with the caveat that we're gonna address employee sharing at a different time frame.
Sure.
So you made a motion? Yes.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Melendez, seconded by Mr. Bass, to approve the rule changes as read by Mr. Boyd and included in detail in the agenda. Are there any further, did you have a question on this too? Oh, okay.
Look at you.
Don't look this way, you get called on. So motion by Mr. Melendez, second by Mr. Bass. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0. John, as always, thank you for pulling this together.
John.
And we will have some discussion on that other point, I think, probably a little bit later in the meeting. I will adjourn the public meeting on rules, and we will reconvene the school board meeting from December 1st. And that brings us to agenda modifications. Board, Dr. Pace, any?
Yes, sir, I do need to add the blue sheeted item 13.02, our Ready, Set, Restart plan for board consideration under superintendent's update. And then under new business would request that the board discuss an appointment to the value adjustment board. We received information from the county. They do have a meeting scheduled on January the 28th, 2021, and both our primary and alternate members of that are no longer members of the board.
Board, any other changes?
One thing I think I would like to, at this stage, discuss the issue of time sharing. Or at a later,
Yeah, we'll do that
at the end.
that at the end for
Okay, for new
our
business.
comments, yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I'm allowed to, item 9.05 and item 9.0.
Want to remove those from consent?
Yes.
9.05 and 8.
Yeah, the batteries, I think is 9.05, 9.08 employee assistance.
Got it. Board, anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Bass, second by Mr. Melendez, to approve the agenda with the addition of 13.02 and the removal of items 9.05 and 9.08. Is that okay with the motion?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And the approval of the remaining consent agenda. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0. That will bring us to item 9.05, I believe. Is that-
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Wait a second. Let's do the informational items first. Are there anything, these are all,
I have no questions.
any questions or comments on the informational items? Hearing none, we will now move to 9.05. Mr. Melendez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 905, I did speak with Sarah Draver and also Cheryl Hood. It used to be Cheryl Jesse, I'm sorry, changed names on me. And Mr. Parker today, and so just in a spirit of transparency, just kind of discussing things. This was for a contract renewal, but with an escalation in price. Because usually when we renew, it's just renewed for the same terms. And so I just wanted them to let them know why that occurred. And then number two, in general, and this is just my thought process, we would obviously need the board to kind of agree, is whenever we have like price contract renewals, one of the ideas were, because I was on the board back in the day, that kind of limited it to 3 years. Then after 3 years, the intent was to make sure that we're getting the best price in the market. So that way, people aren't just guaranteed long-term renewals. That after 3 years, staff does some kind of analysis to say, yes, this price is the best price. And that is what's happening. And Cheryl mentioned that to me before, but when you read the agenda item, it's not really listed. So I would like to see like maybe those agenda items get modified whenever we're renewing a contract to say, hey, staff did their analysis, you know, this is definitely the best price. Or we're using a price based on what Brevard County Schools is doing, you know, because how they do it, I'm not gonna get into that kind of minutia. But just the fact that staff tells us that, yes, the reason why we're renewing or not renewing, in this case, we're actually increasing the price. But then Cheryl mentioned to me that we're increasing the price, but it's still lower than what we would do if we were to competitively bid it. And so I only discovered that by actually talking to staff and having that conversation. I just think that it just makes it easier as a board member to read that and obtain that from the information expressed on the document.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually had the same conversation with staff with regards to this. But one thing that I did do is I also took a look at the East Penn Manufacturing Price Adjustment Letter, and that kind of helped me understand it a little bit as well. Because it does kind of tell you the reasoning, but I do agree that just at first look, you're like, why are we paying extra, right? When the reasoning behind it is very sound. Obviously, they're incurring more cost, and they can't absorb it. So, and our staff did do their due diligence, and they did go out, and this would have been the best price anyway. So I do agree that there might be a little bit more information for the purposes of the public, because it can be a little confusing just looking at it at first hand.
Right. And so it's a philosophical thing. So like what Ms. Castillo said, and I agree with her, I want to approve the agenda item. It's just that, you know, as we have new board members, you know, it's just nice to have a staff analysis print on the items that are renewing contracts or if there's contract amendments, you know, just so that we can get into that. So with that, if there's no other discussion, not the chairman, I'm sorry.
If you wanna make a motion, it's your prerogative.
Okay, I just didn't want to motion before anyone else had anything to say. But I motion to approve item number 9.05 as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Melendez, with a second by Ms. Castillo. Board, we can ask questions now.
I noticed the contract, I mean, it's a letter written a year and some while ago. So it said the price sheets are gonna take effect on December 1st of last year, so.
So they had a price, and I'm not an expert on this. I just asked a question and they gave me like the rundown. They had a price increase last year, which they absorbed, and they had another price. Am I right about that? And they couldn't absorb it again this year. So this is the second time that they have a hike in the price. This time they were not able to absorb it.
Okay,
So in
okay.
other words, we did not pay more this past year.
Yeah, but we are this year.
This time, okay, that's what I
Yes.
was, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I should have been more clear.
And it's based on their cost.
Sure.
You good?
Mhm.
Any other
Yeah.
questions? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Melendez, second by Ms. Castillo. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0, brings us to 9.08, Mr. Melendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 9.08, I really wasn't clear what it was for, because it says it's for Employee Assistance Program Services, and that's kind of broad, like what kind of assistance are we applying? So I would like staff to kind of tell us what kind of assistance is included, what's in the service, and that nature. And are there any costs associated with it? And
Certainly, this is a benefit that we provide to all of our employees to provide free confidential counseling about a variety of things. We use them for grief counseling, for example, when we have a staff member pass away at one of our schools and we need support not just for the students through our crisis teams, but also through adults. We'll contact our EAP program. They can seek counseling for financial concerns, for just general stress and anxiety. They can seek marital counseling. So it is an additional benefit that we provided to our employees. We've had tremendous success. I believe CompPsych is who we worked with.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep, you're correct.
Yes, but to ensure that we were being competitive within the market, we did go out for the full RFP. They were again the recommendation from the staff as to be the one that we would like to request to negotiate with because they've just done a phenomenal job. I mean, we can literally call them on a Sunday night and they'll have people in our schools on Monday morning to provide support for staff for grief counseling. And again, it's free, it's confidential, and in times like this, it is a tremendous benefit to our employees. Again, free, confidential, available for them at any time. There is a cost to the district, but it is one that the district has provided as a benefit.
Right, and we don't keep track of that, so if they call, you know, the principal doesn't know, they can have like an issue, they wanna work out on their own.
That's correct, it's
HIPAA
completely
compliant,
confidential. There are times when we have concerns about an employee's mental well-being, we will do a mandatory employee referral. However, again, we only get notification that the employee went or didn't go to the recommended number of appointments. We don't know anything that was discussed, who they saw, anything like that.
Thank you, Dr. Pace.
May I ask an additional question? Cause we actually have EAP at my job as well, so I'm familiar with it, and at my job, they offer specific sessions, like I get a couple sessions that I can use. Is that the same concept here? Or do they just call it whenever they need?
Typically, I believe they
No,
call them
our previous EAP offered 6 sessions, but CompPsych offers 10 sessions,
So
which is outstanding
10 sessions.
as far as the industry, cause even the person that bid against them, they only offered 6 sessions, so they're able to take care of like 97% of our employees' issues in that 10 session range. So then they don't have to go out and seek additional counseling that they would be paying a copay on.
Yeah, it's really timely, because I know that one of the concerns that the student brought up is that we're not offering mental health services for our teachers, but we are. We do have the option. I guess we just have to make it more clear that these are available for them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah and Tammy, but I believe CompPsych has also spent some time in our Center for Employee Health, providing an additional opportunity for people to see them in that location. Again, it's strictly for the Center for Employee Health, completely protected by HIPAA, but to provide that, I believe it's like 1 day a week that
It's
they're available.
15 hours a week.
15 hours a week that they are at our Center for Employee Health to provide that same mental health and support.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so I guess on conclusion on that is, man, that's great information, but it's not listed in the agenda or some kind of reference to the contract specs or something like that. So we have some kind of link, so when I read that agenda item, I can go out there and get that detail, because I think that's an excellent program, I have no problem with it. I just didn't know about it, you know, I mean, what I saw, I'm just approving, and I'm not exactly sure what we were. So thank you for that explanation now, but going forward, can the agenda items kind of, you know, I know there's a balance between providing too much information and then not, or at least a link, so that way we could read it on our own to get the more detail. I motion to approve as submitted.
I can tag along.
Wait, we have a motion second. I have a motion by Mr. Melendez and second by Mr. Bass to approve 9.08. We have some discussion. Mr. Aguirre?
Yes, I was just gonna say, actually, it's not perfectly well with the same in that motion, but can we just have an executive summary written by the selection committee for these types of issues where it says something? I saw the same thing, I noticed the same thing, I went and I researched these 2 companies. You answered one of my questions that I had regarding this, which was, why can't we have somebody in our own facility there? But obviously we do, you mentioned that. And the other thing would be, which is constantly like a constant or reoccurring theme, is how many local people they're using. Obviously, CompPsych uses contracted people here and that are local, so that answered the other. But I would just, for the same thing, like what I'm accustomed to is an executive summary on everything. That would be helpful, I think, to me and for this issue, just so that we know whether it's worth looking up online or not.
We'll certainly try to provide some more detailed information in the agenda items, and just as a reminder to the board, anytime that you have questions in advance of the meeting, we're happy to make sure that you get answers. And I typically provide answers to all 5 board members when 1 board member has a question.
Board, any other questions, comments? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Melendez and second by Mr. Bass. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0. And real quick, does anybody have an extra bottle of water?
I do, I have a pen.
Thank you.
There's
It hasn't been opened.
I'm gonna, y'all gonna drown me then.
We also have plenty of water back here if you
Oh,
want.
okay, I'm good, thank you. That brings us to our regular agenda, item 11. Board, it's your pleasure.
I'll make a motion to approve item 11.01.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Castillo with a second by Mr. Melendez. Approve item 11.05, board, any questions, comments?
Are you doing all of the items together?
She did 11.05.
Oh, I thought she said
Oh, I didn't realize that. I'm
I did
sorry. You skipped it over.
11.05.
I'm sorry.
Didn't you say 11:25?
I
I
did
thought you
not,
said
but
Oh, I
I will
apologize.
absolutely do it because that is exactly what I meant to do.
I heard what you meant, I guess.
Yes, you're in my head.
I'm sorry, because I heard during the workshop that the Knightsbridge was gonna be voted on the 15th. I didn't realize it was being
No,
voted
it's,
on
yeah,
today.
that's why I made sure that we
Okay.
had that conversation about,
So I'm confused. So are we voting on it now?
As far as I understand, all we're doing is voting on moving forward to obtain the appraisals and everything. So we
Okay.
still have to vote on approval because if the appraisals come back and we're not happy with them,
Right.
am I correct with that?
that's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure that we understood that.
Okay, that's the only thing, yeah.
Just to be very clear, Julius, I think the motion is now for 11.05, which includes the four above it. And you made a second. Did you second 01 or are you okay with 05?
I'm okay with the 5 with that clarification.
There were some questions on Knightsbridge, is that clear? We good with that? Any other questions on any of these items? Hearing none, I have a motion by Mr. Castillo and a second, no, Ms. Castillo and a second by Mr. Belinda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0. Mr. Kruppenbacher, do you have any?
Yes, two items. One, I anticipated an executive session tonight on litigation, but there is a wrinkle to the one case. I do anticipate one following the next meeting because September is when people get realistic about what claims they have or don't have. And we've got to resolve them in our favor. The second thing I need to bring to your
Do
attention.
you need to read those into the record in case?
I will at the next meeting. I've
Okay.
gotten further clarification from the AG on that. Thank you, Mr. Becker. The second thing is last month we received roughly a $400,000 bill from the state to reimburse for unemployment compensation benefits. And gave us 20 days to protest it. Of that 400 and some odd thousand, we felt there was only $900 due and owing.
How much?
900.
Out of 400,000?
Because we identified a number of people who have continued to work for us, a number of people who weren't eligible for it, et cetera. So we filed a protest. We received this week almost $1 million bill of approximately 1,200 people who've gotten the benefits. And we are beginning the task of going through that. There is a state of Florida thing that was issued under the CARES Act that would indicate you only pay 1/2 of that. What's interesting is we paid the $900 we thought we had owed, and then they called Ms. Graver and advised her, even though the letter said send it here, that it wasn't supposed to be sent there, and now send it to the Department of Revenue. They then advised that you'll love this. The letter simply said, file your appeal and lay out your facts, and we did it. All the employees that were currently working for us, all the employees that were no longer here, we did a very good job of doing that. They have now come back with, and I'm gonna call it what it is, their bureaucratic wall and said, oh, you need to go online and enter a protest individually for each one. So I'm alerting you, this is going on all over the state. Orange County's bill last month was almost $1 million. Some of the services that manage unemployment have told their districts, we'll go ahead and pay it. Protest, and we'll get it back credit. Right? Well, getting it back in credit, if you paid $1 million and you're only averaging like $30,000 a month, you might as well for choice. So the advice I've given Dr. Pace is we will pay what we calculate we do, and we're not releasing any money until we get to the bottom of this. it is a real bureaucratic issue because you're getting a lot of this, but you need to be aware of it because it's a very real issue. It's financially significant, so we will continue to, what you may hear is me providing advice to Dr. Pace that we should write every employee who received a check, telling them they're to return it to the state, right? And confirming they returned it, so we get credit for that. But this is a byproduct of a disaster, and people don't see that. You know, we've distributed all this money, but we're simply coming from this pocket to this pocket now and impacting us. So I'll keep you closely advised.
Can you help me understand where the discrepancy is?
I was gonna ask the same exact
what,
thing, like how did they get the money?
What's the mechanics of the discrepancy?
They made payments to people. For example, a bus driver, yes, Dr. Pace.
Keep in mind that Disney and Universal automatically enroll all of the individuals that were furloughed into the unemployment system. And many of our employees have had part-time employment, second or third jobs with Disney and Universal and other theme parks. So some of what we've seen, I don't mean to interrupt you, Frank, but a lot of what we've seen can be attributed back to that.
Can we quantify what percentage?
Oh, yes, we're going,
Okay.
we're going through it, every single one. It's a monumental staff task, but literally, or, you know, as a lawyer, I gotta have it for every single one of them. And we're seeing people, for example, a bus driver or a 10-month employee would not be eligible for unemployment comp over the summer, right? But if they worked for Disney and got put into that pool,
Right.
they automatically were getting checks from the state. So we're having it now. The law is very, very bad because it says there's a presumption, not even a presumption, it's automatically correct what the state does on that. So
But how's that on us, not on the employee? If the employee took the money.
we're gonna get there. All I'm saying is we're gonna peel back the onion slowly and hopefully reduce it to what we legitimately should pay. And then hopefully we don't have to be the one that goes to get the money from people. The state does because they've paid it. Would not count our blessings on that one. I'm just telling you, this is going on at every district in the state. And some are just paying it and saying, well, we'll protest it later. My advice is we don't pay it. Now, ultimately, if we don't resolve it amicably, the Department of Revenue has the ability to literally take it out of the money they're gonna fund us, I mean, on our thing. Hopefully we'll never get there. I spoke to Dr. Pace today and I'm gonna talk with Representative Hawkins. Say this would be a very good, timely effort for us because it's real money to a district like this. All right, we don't have $1 million laying around just to hand people. I know some districts that do, quite candidly, but this is not one of them. And so Dr. Pace thought it important. When we talked today, we talked about it, that we brief you on what is happening and keep you posted. More than questions on it?
No, I agree with the position as well. I pay more, but if we're gonna hold back, like what Frank just mentioned, I would like to have a register indicating what we think it is. So we don't just hold back money arbitrarily, that we have some kind of estimate.
We're not, we literally spent days, finance and I going through it, and we came up with the 400-something thousand, we owe $900. So we paid it, all right? We're gonna do the same thing with the $1 million plus. The bigger problem, think about this, is having to sit there with 1,200 people, one by one, entering the form and saying, here's the reason. Boom. Whereas when we appealed, and by the way, we appealed the way they told us to. We appealed by saying all of these employees shouldn't be paid because, you know, they were still working for us type stuff. They now want us to go line by line, which I consider just bureaucracy at its greatest.
That's all you have, Frank?
That's
Dr. Space, let you do your comments and presentation, and then board, we will look at, the blue sheeted item 13.01. If we can do it in that order, does that make sense?
1302 is really kind of 13.01.
Oh, 13.02, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Having number problems.
well, board members, as you know, before the break, we talked about what second semester might look like for our students, and we were waiting on an emergency order from the Commissioner of Education, and we were able to get some information on Sunday afternoon that the governor and the commissioner wanted to visit Boggy Creek Elementary School on Monday to actually go over that information. So while we hesitate to do blue sheeted items, I am going to be requesting your approval of our Ready, Set, Restart plan. I think you will find that it is very, very, very similar to our Ready, Set, Start Smart plan. That's why I feel confident in bringing it to you tonight with just 24 hours notice. And I think it will help to put some of our folks at ease. But I will also share some information throughout this presentation. While we don't typically respond to public comment, I do have some clarifying comments that I think perhaps the board and our community would find helpful. So, following this presentation, I'll be glad to take any questions and comments, and then I will be seeking approval for the Ready, Set, Restart plan after the presentation. So I just can't tell you again how very proud of all of our families and all of our employees for really, for the most part, successfully navigating everything that we've had to face with having school in a pandemic, with keeping a priority on both safety for our students and our staff members, as well as the education of our students, because in the end, that is our primary mission. And these kids don't have another year to make up 3rd grade or 12th grade or kindergarten. This is it. And then they're going to be expected to move on into the next situation. But it's taken plenty of hard work and teamwork, and we did it. You know, you hear from some folks in our community who certainly their voices need to be heard, and we are listening to them at some of our board meetings. But I will tell you that there are a tremendous number of people out there who are working hard every day and really, really doing an amazing job. So, the Ready, Set, Start Smart plan that we put into place, I feel confident in telling you that it has continued to work to minimize the spread of COVID-19 in our schools and to continue making learning a priority. Does that mean we don't have COVID? Absolutely not. We're in a pandemic, okay? You can't stop a virus until we have a successful vaccination and herd immunity. However, we are not seeing spread through a classroom, through a football team, through a staff group since really school started. The majority of COVID cases and quarantine situations that we're reporting on a daily basis are as the result of exposure to someone in the home, someone in the community. And then we're taking the consistent, appropriate action. I will tell you that again, I have today's report from locally, Osceola County. Yesterday, we had 107 new cases in Osceola County. The day before was 191. The day before that, it was 78. But our numbers for testing are staying high, despite the fact that we had Thanksgiving holiday. Has the percentage of positivity continued to be a concern? It's above 5%, absolutely. But it's staying in that 7, 8, 9% range each and every day. We have hospital capacity, and actually the report of influenza and COVID-like illness over the course of the last 2 weeks has started to trend back down. But this is only because our students, our parents, and our employees are consistently taking the precautionary measures that we put into place. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. We're dealing with 69,000 people. But I will tell you that as I walk through schools, visit schools, talk to people in the community, kids and teachers continue to wear their masks. We're continuing to try to practice social distancing where it makes sense, and where it's not, that's where we have to implement the quarantine situations. So as we plan to look forward to second semester, I do think we need to look back at things that we've already learned. First of all, it is now true, they talked about it again yesterday, that the science is showing, just like Dr. Alexander and Dr. Kadilyev and Ms. McCluskey said last week, that kids are safer in school than almost anywhere because they have adults that are monitoring what they're doing, they are wearing their masks, they're staying apart from their friends. If they're not there, they're down the street playing basketball, or they're all huddled together, dancing in the streets, or whatever it is that kids do. So kids are safer in schools than they are in a lot of places. We also do know that face masks and hand washing are making a very big difference, especially when social distancing is not practical. The first thing we ask when we get a call about someone who has tested positive for COVID is, were you wearing your masks? Were you together for more than 15 minutes? Were you within 6 feet? Those are the questions that determine who's quarantined, who's not. And I can assure you that no one who's called me or Mr. Phelps or anyone in my office, and that's where the calls come, or last week they were coming to my cell phone each and every day, do we say, oh, if you were positive, don't worry about it, we're not gonna tell anybody. That is absolutely not the case. Anyone who is positive for COVID stays home for 10 days from the onset of symptoms, 14 days if they're asymptomatic. Someone who has direct exposure to someone who has tested positive for COVID stays home for 14 days unless they develop symptoms, and then it's 10 days from that onset of symptoms. That is consistent. What I get more often than not is, well, I had a rapid test and it was negative, can I come back tomorrow? No, that's not what the CDC guidelines say, that's not what the protocols say, and that's not the direction that we're telling people. I will tell you that in doing some reading yesterday, CDC is looking at the quarantine period. Because what the science has found now is that the majority of people are spreaders about 48 hours before symptoms occur, which is the guidance that Mr. Phelps and I and the team have been using to provide quarantine guidelines, because that's what the Department of Health and CDC has said. And then about 6 to 7, 8 days out from that first development of symptoms or that first positive test. It may be that the CDC will consider, according to the research I read yesterday, reducing the quarantine period from 14 days to 10 or whatever it is. But I do not recommend that we do anything different than what CDC says as it relates to quarantine situations. Even if somebody wants to play in the championship football game on Friday night, my answer was no. Okay? Because you can test negative this morning and be positive tomorrow and be potentially spreading COVID-19. And we don't take a chance on working it through an entire football team. The only whole football team that we've had to quarantine this year was at the beginning of the season with Celebration High School, because 3 members of the opposing team tested positive for COVID, and one of those guys was one of those super kids who plays offense and defense and was all over the field. So we could not limit exposure for that situation. And so in that situation, we quarantined the whole team. I currently have a soccer team that we had to quarantine before the break because a digital learner showed up for practiced with the team, and then said, oh yeah, coach, by the way, I tested positive today. So those are the things that we continue to emphasize to people in our community, parents, kids, and adults. If you know that you have been exposed to COVID or you've tested positive, please do not come. In fact, that was our messaging over the weekend through social media to remind people as we were coming back from the Thanksgiving break. So again, just a few of these other items. The vast majority of quarantining is because of community spread of COVID outside of school, not on our campuses. We do know that more digital students earn D and F letter grades in first semester grading as compared to our face-to-face students. I also looked again today. We currently have 50% of our students who are face-to-face, 49 who are digital, and I will share some of that information with you. Attendance continues to be about 3% less, average daily attendance, for our digital learners than face-to-face learners. But it comes back to this. We do know, and I will continue to stand behind the fact, that school is about the standards in the curriculum and testing, but it's also about relationships. And the social and emotional supports that our kids need to be successful are in a classroom with a caring teacher and caring peers. That's where learning happens best. We have continued to consult with Dr. Cadilia and Dr. Alexander and Ms. McCluskey. I am confident that they would be happy to come back to one of our meetings in January. I don't think I can get them to come in December just because it's right before the holidays, but certainly in January, we'll have them give us a second semester kind of status update as what's happening with the vaccine, what's happening locally with community spread, because we want to continue to keep ourselves informed, you informed, and certainly our community informed, that we are relying on science. But again, this is that average daily attendance that I was telling you about as of today's data. Average daily attendance for our face-to-face kiddos is 92%. Average daily attendance for digital learners is 89.8. That doesn't sound considerable, but it does make a difference. Clarence?
What would that 92% have been 2 years ago, roughly?
Average daily attendance normal is 94%.
So it's little.
That's the district goal. So it is impacted by everybody. But keep in mind that we are quarantining people.
No, I get it.
You know,
I was
as
just curious.
necessary.
I didn't have a frame of reference.
Correct. So I wanted to share with you too an update on our COVID pool testing that has been ongoing. This is one of the things that we'll need direction from the board on, not tonight's meeting, but at our December meeting. Do we continue pool testing second semester or not? Remember, we have been testing a school on the east and a school on the west every day. It's a rotational schedule, so there's testing available at a school once a month. It's strictly voluntary. Staff members who want to be tested can be tested. Students who want to be tested and have parent permission can be tested. We do it randomly. We have currently tested 1,862 teachers or staff, 10 positive results from our pool testing. Less than 0.5% or less than 1%. We've tested 3,100 students, 6 have tested positive who were asymptomatic at school. So overall, our positive rate for our pool testing is 0.31%.
They're voluntarily saying it, we're not just randomly choosing people.
They've said we want to be tested or we want our kids tested, we randomly pull them in from there, and that's how that's done.
I said it last time, and it's more whatever you, it's up to us. I think with this going on, I think everything we can do to test, we should continue doing. And I think this is actually some data that shows being in school is safer. But it gives us a chance, especially with the numbers, we reached 200,000 in the country. If something happens, maybe we have a big spike, maybe this gives us the way to find that.
I will tell you that our lab has been very consistent in that 24 to 36 hour turnaround on test results, which has been very, very beneficial. We also have the opportunity to send employees to the lab if necessary, but we're also sending employees to the Department of Health as well as students who are symptomatic on a regular basis for both the rapid test or the PCR test if they're negative. But happy to continue this. It's certainly working.
Yeah, I'm definitely for it as well. Not that we're making a decision right now, but as a parent of a child who goes to school in Osceola County, I think it's important to have that as a backup plan.
So just to give you an overall briefing of the state of Florida's emergency executive order, 2020 EO07, it does allow for both digital learning, face-to-face learning, and virtual school learning. It does provide for some assurance of fiscal stability if we meet standards and assurances that we will have to submit to the Department of Education. Mr. Flowers is leading the charge on developing our district plan to make sure that we have this in place. Much of it we were already doing. We already were planning spring and summer intervention for reading and math to not only prepare our students for the FSA and EOC exams, but also to help with that accelerated learning that Mr. Allen and some of the others referenced. We know our kids are behind. So what we worked hard to do is to prioritize essential standards, make sure kids get the skills that they need that they may have missed, but also continue to move forward, because this is the only chance they have. Continuous progress monitoring, we've implemented the NWEA for our baseline formative assessment. It has a national ranking. We'll be doing our second round over the next couple of weeks. Students will get a RIT score, which will help us determine their growth from the fall to now. Remember, both our digital and face-to-face students are required to do progress monitoring, and our teachers are using their PLC time on Wednesday afternoons to look at the data and determine specific interventions for both our digital and our face-to-face kids. We must commit to continuing to provide the full range of services for our students with disabilities and our ELL students. They have also asked us to develop a specific plan to target under-enrolled VPK and kindergarten students. So I actually reached out to my peers, the other Central Florida superintendents today to say, is this something that maybe we want to do a regional effort for? We had already done a basic campaign locally to try to get more parents to bring their VPK and kindergarten students back into schools, but perhaps we could actually leverage some positive media by talking about the importance of that early learning piece. We will also have to have a specific plan for monitoring attendance and reaching out when there are truancy issues, as well as additional professional development to support our improve digital teaching and learning. So again, Mr. Flowers is leading the charge on that. We have to have our plan submitted to DOE by December the 15th. They've already reviewed our draft restart plan and said that with just a few tweaks and the additional information that we need to provide, I feel confident that we'll have no issues getting that approved.
Are they still gonna require the FSA at the end of the year? Are they
That
still
is
gonna do
currently
that
still
through a plan?
required. That is a part of the state's accountability plan. So I have given you a printed copy of our draft Ready, Set, Restart plans. I don't intend to go through all of them with you individually. I sent them to you in advance because so little is changing for our parents and our students and our teachers and our staff. But I do want to call your attention to page 6 of 7 in the parent-student agenda, which should have been the first one in your packet.
I don't see page numbers.
One, I don't see.
They're
Yeah,
not
there's no
numbered.
page numbers.
What's the top?
Down
of
on the
page?
bottom,
Uh-uh.
oh, mine is numbered.
What's
You
the
got
top
this
of your?
one.
Okay, let's see which one it is.
It's the chart. It's the
Sorry, I apologize.
That's all right.
Got it.
Please don't make us count again.
So as you know, the three options can continue for second semester as with the board's approval. That is the face-to-face instruction at school with our health and safety precautions in place. Will social distancing be more challenged as more kids come back? Absolutely. But masks are our essential weapon against issues there. Digital learning is approved with the students following a traditional school day schedule for instruction with some conditions that I'll review in a minute, as well as in our Osceola virtual school. And we opened up a window of enrollment the week before break, and it continues through the 11th for OVS. The change or the assurances or the conditions that are required in the emergency order, which quite frankly, we already were looking to put into place for our digital learners. In fact, after the first midterm marking period, so 4.5 weeks of school, we started reaching out to students who had D's and F's. We launched a comprehensive effort again at the end of the marking period to say to parents, you know, Susie, Johnny is not being successful. What can we do to help your child be more successful? At Boggy Creek yesterday, I was talking to Mrs. De La Fuentes, and she said, you know, she was walking through a digital classroom. She sees a kindergarten kid with the pencil between his toes and his toes up here around his shoulder. You know how kids are. So, you know, she called mom and she said, hey, do you know what so-and-so's doing? And mom's like, well, he's in his bedroom. She said, you know, you might want to check on him. And mama said on her very own accord, you know, it might be time for him to come back to school. And Mrs. De La Fuente said, yes, ma'am. Now, to address Mr. Melendez's point early on, the governor was very clear, and the emergency order is clear. We cannot mandate that a parent send a digital learner back to school, even if that child is not being successful. We are required to explain the potential ramifications to the parent, to offer the parent additional supports. Perhaps if you're not comfortable sending them back face-to-face 5 days a week, you would come to a Saturday camp, or you would come to a Wednesday after school program, or we'll have to arrange for some push-in support from a para during the day, during lunch, or whatever it is. And the parent will have to sign a release saying, I know my kid's not doing well, but this is what works for our family, and we have to commit as a district to continuing to go above and beyond to try to help that child be successful.
I love that idea of holding the parent accountable too, having them sign a contract. Look, I'm assuming their responsibility, so don't blame it on us, because we get.
And we have been having those individual conversations, and in my conversations with principals, they've been very, very successful. If you have a parent who had an unfortunate situation, Mr. Melendez, I do encourage you to contact me, let me know that specific situation, not to get somebody in trouble, but that individual may need some additional coaching. Because I have had very positive reports about how those conversations have gone. I did want to share with you also, though, we have done some good work, I think, as a team and with input from principals and teachers about clarifying expectations for our digital learners and making that a part of our plan. We know, for example, that we need to see kids' faces. Too many times they log in, they have their little avatar up, and then they're off to play basketball or Game Boy or whatever, do the laundry. We've had kids say, hey miss, I gotta go, my mom says I have to do laundry. Okay, so that means they're not learning. So one of our expectations will be that students will log in, turn on the camera, and remain engaged in the lessons throughout the day and actively participate. Now, part of the training, professional development that we're doing for teachers also includes some engagement strategies. What can you do to check in with kids throughout the lesson to make sure that they're not twirling the pencil with their toes or doing the laundry or, whatever. So there's, it's a two-way street. But we want to make clear the expectation for kids, for parents, and for teachers in that digital world. Because teachers can't do it all by themselves. A couple of other things just to say, we know that we need kids completing their own work independently, particularly tests. I think I've shared with you earlier that after the first NWEA assessment, we had some parents contact our LEA team saying, man, that test was really hard. My second grader was hard, it was struggling. I'm thinking, well, Mom, you shouldn't have been that engaged in the NWEA assessment. We need to know what your second grader knows, okay? Because again, it's not for a grade, it's not a gotcha, it's that formative data that we can use to provide instruction. So those are really the critical elements that have changed in our plan. What is it that we need parents to do once the plans are approved? If they want to change their option, they're currently a digital learner and they want to go face-to-face. We're not encouraging face-to-face to digital, but we'll certainly work with parents and students who have specific situations that come up. We need them to go into our website. It'll be all launched and ready to go tonight once the board approves the plan to select the new child's option. Mr. Thorne and the team have worked to create a Microsoft form, very much like we used first semester. They click on it, they give us the information we need. Schools will begin following up to get those kids scheduled. We're giving them 1 week to do that, December the 9th. Because keep in mind that we have winter break in just basically 2.5 weeks from today. If your student is currently a face-to-face learner or a digital learner, your student's being successful, you don't have to do anything. We've got you. We're just going to continue the plan as long as it's working. If they want to enroll in Osceola Virtual School, they can fill out the form, but we also need them then to follow up with OVS to complete that enrollment process, because there's a couple more steps that have to be involved there. One other piece I wanted to, again, just reaffirm for you as a board and also for our community, we continue to be committed to transparency. The website is updated every week. Other than last week, I gave the team a week off to update the data because of the Thanksgiving holiday. But that didn't mean the COVID calls stopped coming. It didn't mean I still didn't complete a daily report that Mr. Phelps then processed over the weekend to update our website today. We are continuing to follow CDC guidelines, and if there is an adult or a student out there who feels like they've gotten information to indicate that we're not doing it, I sincerely hope that they will reach out. If they want to do it anonymously, they can do it through Let's Talk on our website. Give us the school, give us the individual or the situation. We will follow up and research. I don't want someone who's been exposed to COVID or who has COVID in our schools, interacting on any of our teams, because that doesn't stop the slow of the pandemic. That only makes the situation worse for everybody. And that's not good for you, it's not good for me, and we know it's not good for our employees and our families. So with that, board, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, provide any additional information, and again, I would seek your approval for our Ready, Set, Restart plans.
I've got a question. It's great presentation. But they're rolling off the vaccine seems to be the hot topic of the day, and it's rolling. They're making it in mass right now. Looking into your crystal ball, when we do get when the vaccine does become available to everyone, which it seems like they're really on a fairly fast track. How are we going to approach that? I mean, what's the schools? What's the schools? I don't, because there's going to be people who won't take it, and there's going to be those who will take it. I just don't know how that's going to play into all of this.
Well, I think as we learn more, that may be something that the board will want to discuss from a policy aspect. Right now, we're looking at it from an operational aspect. For example, in the past, we have been asked to do flu vaccine clinics in our schools. This year we did not, even though we emphasized to people the importance of getting the flu vaccine. We did it for staff and had a greater participation than we've ever had. Is that something we want to do in school? Is that something we want to leave to the community? I do know that the American Association of School Administrators, AASA, today did petition the CDC to make educators one of those essential groups at the front end of the testing, maybe not at the very front. My daughter and fiance were in town over the weekend. They're surgeons. They know they'll be in the front of the line to get the vaccine, as they should be. But who comes next? That is the question. And the more we can do to help make that accessible to educators, I think is important, because they are frontline workers for certain. What we will do from a policy standpoint, we currently have vaccine policies for enrollment based on state guidelines. I would assume that we would rely back on what the state requires in terms of that. I think it'll be a while before it's reasonable or advisable, but certainly that's a decision of the board to mandate it for everybody. But we can do a lot and would do a lot to promote, to encourage, to make it accessible to people. Because the more we can do to get that vaccine through our community, the sooner life could return to somewhat normal.
I'll wait till we get there. But I do want to follow up on that, Dr. Pace. When I did speak with the parent and we got it cleared up, she was aware, and I made sure, when I spoke to her, that it's coming from a good place. And matter of fact, I even spoke with Ms. Corbett, who's my principal at Parton Sullivan, and I asked her, and she was like, I was already doing it even before the mandate of January, because I felt little Johnny was failing. I wasn't going to wait till January for them to make that decision. She was already having those proactive conversations with students. Hey, little Johnny, I'm just, again, using an anonymous name. Look, you've been failing, buddy. You may want to consider these other options. And she said her school went down to like 30%, because it was 50-50 before. And now she's already like at 70%, face to face. And that gave me such confidence that I even decided to put my own son back in school in January. So I was really, really comfortable. So it's not just, when people are to try to come and aim at this board, I feel comfortable putting my son in there because things are going well. Are they perfect? We understand it's not. But I think that, but it is, like you said, it's not mandatory. And I think that was clear, that we're not trying to force students into face-to-face, and so that way there's no misinterpretation. We're only doing it because, little Johnny or Miss whoever is really struggling, and we care about that student. I care about student progression more than it trumps, all the other factors.
I think this was really great. I enjoyed reading it. It's well thought out. It's well planned. It's small changes, but they're well thought out. It's great. I'd like to make the motion if we're ready. So I'll make the motion to accept this.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Aguero and second by Mr. Melendez to approve the back to school ready set restart plan. Board, any further comments or discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those like sign, motion carries 5-0. Excellent job.
If I could just make one more comment, my hat goes off to Dana and her team. We had begun drafting this plan obviously before yesterday, because it's taken a tremendous amount of preparation. But she's done a fantastic job, the whole team has done a fantastic job, and as of right now, probably, the communication plan has started. As I said, the website will be updated, we have social media ready to go. There's a remind message that will go out, a video that will go out, an email that will go out, and also a call. So you may get it in your car, but we will make sure that everybody's informed, they know what the choices are, they know the expectations, so that we can get this going and get it going successfully. And I appreciate your support. I know it's a lot coming out, and a fairly new board, but I appreciate your support.
I know that brings us on to the new business. I know that there's been a couple comments about the sharing of the sick days, and let me just throw out a little framework and then we can adjust it maybe. What I would like to see maybe at the next meeting is have staff to do a review of this on the sharing of the sick days, and a couple of pieces of data I'd like to see is I'd like to see what our neighboring school districts are doing with this, if or not. And also, if we could reach out to the City of Kissimmee, St. Cloud, Osceola County, Tidal Water, and KUA to see what they are doing with this. And then I'd like to see them bring us kind of a list of pros and cons and kind of generate our discussion. If you don't wanna add anything to that, or just.
I know my wife works at Orlando Health, and they have a similar platform where they can share.
All right, that's a great place. I knew that Mr. Perez and Tammy had already started to do some research on this based on the information that we'd received, but we certainly can bring back a comprehensive,
Is there anything else y'all wanna add to this list?
The only thing I would ask is what is the fiscal impact? Because logically, I'm thinking it's none, because we pre-budget so many sick days, whether or not they use it or somebody else uses it. So at the end of the day, the bottom line isn't impacted by the district.
you know, the question becomes because you have different employee groups at different salary levels and that kind
Okay,
of stuff.
well,
So
then I
there
guess
are
that's
some
one thing I would
logistics
ask
that
for
we
as
just
well,
need to
either.
work on and look at what other people have done, but it's certainly something that I've heard the board's interest in us pursuing, and we will do so.
That was the only question I had, and I was going to ask Ms. Hart, so that I assume that, you know, if I'm making $150,000 a year and this person's making $30,000, my sick time has more value, then is that kind of the gist of things? So that might be the hurdle that we have, and so I can give my more expensive sick time to the less one, but to do it in reverse might be a dilemma.
If you could, if part of this analysis, if you could do the logistics on how you would handle that piece, I think too.
I would like to say thank you to the teachers, St. Cloud staff at St. Cloud Middle School. I think that the approach was extraordinary. It was obviously a very touching issue. I know it impacted everyone here, and it's a very human thing. And I think that even if there is an economic impact, that it may be in terms of retention and community, it may be worth it just to make sure that we can provide the level of support that people need in real life, and that's one of them, certainly.
And thank you for your kindness and being, I was really impressed by reading the letter and all of the names of the people who were willing to step up. And I would have my name on that list as well. So I want to thank you for doing that.
Very well.
If that gets us what we need for the next one, we move on from there. Is there any other new business? Yes, we have appointment of the new value adjustment board. Remember, that is a board member, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Anybody interested?
When do they meet? Okay, I have questions.
No, go ahead.
When do they meet?
The next meeting is January the 28th, 2021. It's very rarely, actually.
I think they only meet once a year.
Once a year?
Not very rare. Just once a
It's
year?
subject to change depending on the ability to obtain quorum, and they have to have hearings. So it's really like if people are questioning the value of their property, correct? I think if they have a question about the way their property has been evaluated by the property appraiser's office, they can submit an appeal to this group, and then this group reviews it.
As needed.
Yeah, because I sat on it before, I think we listened to it, but we don't actually do the work. We appoint magistrates to actually hear the cases. That's why we only meet once a year. It's more like an organizational meeting discussing how the magistrates are gonna do the work. So you don't actually review properties and parcels. The magistrates do it on your behalf.
Well, I think Mr. Arguello wanted to be on that board, so I will go ahead and yield.
We need 2 people.
Oh.
You're
in.
You're in. I'll be the alternate. You can be the main dude, okay? Yeah.
Is that?
Main dude, and I want to get you a plaque that says main
The
dude.
main dude. I feel like we need to have that as a.
They don't do much, I thought it was just right.
There you go. Connie, you got what you need for that?
Sir.
You need you need to
I don't think we
vote on
need,
that.
I think consensus is fine.
No, just consensus.
Okay.
Mr. Thacker,
Yes.
under unfinished business, you guys had the public comment on there. Were you going to discuss that or no need to do that?
No, I
The-
would still like
that
to
was the
discuss it.
piece, which,
1401,
oh, moving it on the agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I apologize, I read that. I got confused. Moving it to the end of the agenda?
I still believe that would be more beneficial, and it's not even about, just making them stay because we want them to, have to do the work. I think it's beneficial for our community, right, at large, to know the process. I think it's beneficial for students who are interested in activism to actually see what the process is like, so they can have a framework when they stand up there and have conversations and scream at people who are actually on their side. I think that's really important. I'm really passionate about moving it to the end of the meeting. Of course, it is up to the board, but for those reasons, I think that I would still like to see the entire community participating in this meeting. If we're going to be accountable, I want them to be accountable as well.
I agree. I wonder if there's any other placement other than at the very end, because,
They can run mine.
I mean, can we
Yeah,
put it
Like
well,
maybe
here-
after,
like somewhere in the middle so that we can get the meat of the meeting and some of the stuff that we go over at the end, it's not, it's
I would yield to that if that
What
was.
if we moved them right after the regular agenda items above where the superintendent's comments and the attorneys and
I love that.
and if that is the case, that I had talked earlier about moving the presentation stuff on I'd still like to just move it right above that, I think. Does that make sense?
I'm okay.
Because right now, eventually, hopefully in a year, or hopefully by the end of the school year, this is not a hot topic and it can.
But then it's even better that people come and they're not just listening to the hot topic. They can actually see what the process is.
Correct.
Well, to defend Ms. Castillo, which I'll be honest, we have the Ready Set Start program at the very end of the meeting. And some of those public comments that were answered in the Ready Set Start. So I didn't sit here and listen to the superintendent delineate the aspects of returning to school. It's like they have pre-prepared statements in a way. I mean, it is, people can do, it's the First Amendment, they can do whatever they want. But it feels like some of them are so prepared that they didn't even listen to what was on the agenda. So, and from that respect, I understand where Ms. Castillo is coming from, and I really don't have any here to say
Let's
where
try
you wanna
it
put
for
it.
the next meeting. We'll move it to right after the regular agenda.
now do you wanna give, because I see a lot of familiar
I think
faces.
we make a public announcement,
Yeah,
right?
make it-
When we publish the agenda a week ahead. So if
It will be
they're
on-
activists, they should be active, they should know what's up, right? So they will see that the public comments have been moved. I think that's all we need to do, yeah?
Publish the agenda.
I love it.
Nothing says this is
I
the
mean, am
format
I
of
right?
every agenda.
Yes, Mr. Thackles, I just want to put on the record, you have the authority as the chair, should Dr. Pace want to do a presentation of this nature, to move that ahead so the public hears it. Most of our comments would, nobody needs to hear, but every once in a while, Dr. Pace has a critical presentation, so you can make that adjustment, and I would just want the board to know that.
Right.
Okay, cool. Sorry for missing that. Somehow the line got right.
I can see that.
Instead of being we got the value adjustment. School board, any comments?
Look, the two items real quick. The first thing is Mr. Frank. Holy moly. I mean, I was on a board back in the day where, I'm not that old, but I remember $1 million retainer fees for attorneys was the norm. And when I saw that new thing come up, because, Dr. Pace sent us a spreadsheet, $500,000 a year is the new, now it's still not a great number, but relatively speaking, it's still a good number relatively speaking, when like the average person hears that, oh my God, but that includes all the legal services that we do. That, I just wanted to say, because people know me, people know I'm a penny pincher, I look at everything and a penny is not gonna fly by me that easily, it could be, but my lord, I wanna commend, Frank. Man, what an amazing job. I'm telling you, I got used to it. I got conditioned. I thought $1 million was just what it is. And the fact that it's $500,000 a year. Thank you, Frank, for doing that.
Credit goes to this board and the superintendent team. This was a collaborative effort of everybody focusing and working on it. And I really want to thank Dr. Pace and her leadership, because they do their job, which means there's less need for the lawyer to always be sucked into something. And that's a credit to her. And I've seen the other side, so it's a blessing. But thank you for your comments.
Julius has seen the other side.
another comment?
Yeah, and one more comment, I know it's a little bit long meeting, but, cause even Dr. Pace kind of mentioned it too, cause sometimes as board members, we get so much into what we know, and it's always like business, 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 and we don't get into like the academic side as much. And it's funny because my son is doing option 2, and I'm trying to help him, and I don't do the test or anything like that, you know what I mean, but
Probably good.
But and I think we spoke about it during my staff orientation. We look at the FSA and the way they do math, there's like a gazillion ways to do math. And I know my division, I know how to do it, but the way the state wants you to do it by drawing pictures and bubbles, and I literally had to go to YouTube and search for like 45 minutes to figure out how they wanted it to get done. And so at that meeting, I think we spoke with Dana Schaefer, and she said, we have a YouTube channel. And so I was challenging, you know, and I'm just myself, I couldn't do it. That's why I'm bringing it up here at the board to say, hey, what if we have some awesome teachers, you know, and can teach like certain math problems that are difficult, you know, and not just so much for the students, but for the parents. Because I want to be able to tutor my son on how to do some of these weird ways of doing math that, you know, if I had a channel that I can go to and I know it's approved, because that's the other thing too, I had to watch like 3 different channels because one teacher really wasn't as good, or they didn't have the exact problem that I wanted to. So I had to search through channels to find that method. So if the school district can find common problems, like the way they do fractions or the way they do division, and create, you know, have our teachers show off, you know what I mean? And, you know, because now with this digital learning, people are used to getting in front of a camera, you know, maybe they can teach them on the most common occurring problems that students have. And that way parents have access to that channel, and the students as well, to get, you know, their own kind of, you know, taking responsibility for their education.
I do not have, I exhausted all of my comments today.
Exhausted is a key word. Arguello?
No, there's a good reason though. I will say that some of us don't get involved in academics. In case you didn't see, everybody was talking about little Johnny, and little Johnny was pretty much me in school. So that's all I have to say.
Very good.
And I don't have any, but this brings us to the best part of the meeting for me.
Right.
At least the most fun part. Emma, what would you like to tell us about or ask us, or, and I think I'd ask you at the last meeting, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of give us a little update on you too, and what your thoughts are, where you may be going or doing.
Yeah, so I plan on majoring in biochemistry and environmental science.
Okay, that's enough.
Drop the mic. Yeah, so I plan on going into research. Some of the schools I'm applying to are the University of Chicago, Tulane University, and Rice University. As this is my final meeting as a student representative, I would like to thank the board again for this opportunity. To be honest, at schools, when we hear about things the district is doing, you all are just the district. We don't know a lot about what goes on here at these meetings or behind the scenes, and attending these meetings gave me a lot more perspective on the work you guys put into giving us a high quality education. So thank you again for giving me this opportunity. So to jump into what I wanted to talk about, Governor DeSantis recently announced Florida's plans for the spring 2021 semester on Monday. Virtual and in-person learning options will remain available, something myself and my peers are very grateful for. We firmly believe that allowing a portion of students to remain online for the second semester, for whatever their reasons may be, whether they are excelling as digital students or are high-risk individuals to the virus, this is crucial to keeping students, teachers, and faculty safe. As Dr. Kadia, Dr. Alexander, and Ms. McCluskey emphasized at the last meeting, very few cases are due to transmissions occurring at school, but the safety measures in place, as well as allowing some students to remain digital, keeps transmissions in schools to a minimum. While the virtual option for learning will remain available, we must continue working to keep our learning environment safe and even increasing their safety. The system is not perfect. As some students choose to return face-to-face who may have been struggling in the digital world during the remainder of this semester and next semester, social distancing will become increasingly difficult, as I have emphasized during these last meetings. Issues with distancing in classes, and especially in lunchrooms as more students come back and take off their masks to eat, must be addressed. We must also take care of our teachers because they are the ones educating our students. No matter what the district or school leadership does, it ultimately comes down to the teachers to take their leadership, guidance, and put it into practice. Teachers have been working extremely hard this year at taking on face-to-face, virtual, and hybrid learning all at once, and we have to support them. The teachers' mental health is just as important as the students. I've even been told by some teachers that they go home crying some days because of the stress. Teachers must also be given paid leave when they have been exposed to an individual with COVID-19, because if that teacher does have the virus, it is possible they could spread it to students and their families. They have to be allowed to quarantine from home without worrying about how they will pay the bills or buy groceries. And we have seen that a lot has been going under the rug, as public speakers tonight talked about, and that must change. At the last meeting, Dr. Kadia pointed out that schools will only do as well as the community will allow them to do. And she is completely right. As Mr. Evans commented, we need to work in the community and plant our seeds to do our part to prevent the spread of COVID-19. That means encouraging the wearing of masks, social distancing, hand washing, cleaning, and quarantining when necessary. I have had a lot of conversations with my friends and a few teachers on the importance of this and planting my seed. But many teachers and students have also been doing this and planting their own seeds in the community and home with varying successes. I believe the district has the opportunity to plant these seeds in students' minds by encouraging these safety measures outside of school, and I think the district has the chance to make a huge difference by doing this. By teaching students why these measures are necessary, especially younger students in elementary school, I believe a ripple effect will occur in our community as they begin to plant a seed in the minds of their friends and even families. I also had one question. On the PowerPoint, it said that digital learners from the first semester, they must have letter grades of A, B, or C in all classes, have 90%, and be at grade level proficiency on standardized assessments to continue being digital for the second semester. But as Dr. Pace said, the governor made it clear that we can't force students to come back. So I just felt like that slide was kind of contradicting what you were saying, and I don't know if I was misunderstanding something, but I feel like it could be misunderstood by other parents and students.
Go ahead.
The expectation is that if they want to continue in digital learning, they will meet those expectations. We will have individual conversations with parents, reach out, make sure they know what's going on with their student. We'll talk to them about what can happen. But then if the parent chooses to have them remain digital, the parent will just have to sign a release.
Okay. Is there a way that will be communicated directly with parents unless they have to reach out? Or?
No, it'll be individual because those need to be individual discussions because we need to look at what's happening with each child as to why they're not being successful.
Okay, thank you. And that was all I had to say. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Can I ask you a question about one of your comments?
Yeah.
Without trying to put you on the spot? Because you've mentioned this a couple times, is the social distancing aspect of lunch, the lunchroom, and taking your mask off to eat. So I know that's kind of on your mind. Do you have any thoughts on a solution to that?
Yeah, so for high schools at least, I know we have the option to eat inside lunchrooms and outside in the courtyard. Right now we have limited courtyard space because we can't just open the entire campus. But I think if we opened a little bit more, of course supervised by faculty, so that students had the option to eat outside so that they could distance a little better, especially as more people come back on campus. And then for middle schools, at least at Narcoossee Middle where I went, you could only eat inside the cafeteria. I'm not sure if they've expanded eating outside because I know there are some picnic tables as well, but I think if we could expand more space outside for students to eat in, that would help a lot.
Sounds kind of reasonable.
It's a great suggestion, Emma, and
Yeah,
Mr.
we like
Allen,
buy
Dr.
extra
Evans, and
foldable
Dr.
tables,
Respis are all
outside,
shaking
but-
their heads, that we'll be glad to talk to the principals with that suggestion. Thank you, Emma. I appreciate you being part of the solution.
We're gonna call it the Emma Circle.
I love it.
Board, any other, right?
Before you leave, you have mail in the boardroom.
Okay, really.
Oh, yeah.
Any other comments or questions for Emma?
No, thank you. Good luck on everything
Thank
you
you.
do.
Good luck. Thank you very much for
That's a
being
great
here,
suggestion
Emma.
at the end too.
And we appreciate your comments and your thoughts, and wish you all the success next year when you end up at one of those three amazing places. So that's what we want out of this district, is for students who want to follow that path to have the tools to go to Rice or Chicago. So very proud of you. Good luck to you.
Don't forget us when you're
Oh,
And come back here.
Oh, last thing on that, do we wanna send her a letter recommendation? So she
can-
can use that with her?
sure.
I mean, signed by the chairman and the superintendent saying, hey, she was a board member, listened to us for 5 million hours, wherever. That-
She's had 3 COVID meetings. Lord help her.
Hey, I do, Emma, I'll ask you a question. you've heard what we did, we moved our public comments around a little bit.
Yes.
What's your opinion on that?
Oh, I completely agree, because I think a lot of questions were addressed by Dr. Pace during her presentation, so I think it would be really helpful.
Okay, good, I'm glad to hear that.
That's all I need. All I need is Emma's opinion.
Board, anything else? If not, we will